They tell stories about sudden endings like they're thunderclaps. Mine wasn't cinematic. It began with small wrong choices that multiplied, and then one photo that made a clean line across everything I loved. My name is Mark. I'm 30, or at least that's what the passport says. I had been with Rachel for 8 years. We built a life that looked steady from the outside. The flat on the second floor, her laughter in the kitchen, the photo frames leaning together on the mantel like honest witnesses. I was selfish and stupid, and I admit it. I sleep at night with that guilt. I got involved with someone at work, Claire, and we kept convincing ourselves it was a stupid affair that would end before anyone got hurt. We were wrong. Claire got pregnant. The news hit like a freight train, and I watched my life snap in 2 directions at once. I didn't defend myself because there was nothing to defend. I'd made my bed. Almost immediately my job became a desert. Rumors, awkward silences, colleagues whose eyes drifted past me like they could pretend I didn't exist. Friends turned into a long list of people I stopped hearing from. Rachel found out before I had the courage to tell her. I found my things at my parents' house while I was still trying to find the words to apologize. She didn't confront me. She didn't call me name. She put a handful of my shirts and a stack of records into car boots and left, silent as a verdict. I messaged everyone we knew, begging Rachel to talk. I begged her to let me explain. The messages piled up into a kind of digital howl that everyone else treated like noise. People chose the side they wanted to believe. Claire saw the flood of my apologies, and those messages added friction to our fragile truce. But Claire carried the baby to term, and we decided, painfully and honestly, to try to give our child the best possible start. I told myself that was the right thing, even as I wondered which part of me had been buried in the cost. I deserved the fallout. I expected cold shoulders and slams, and the slow erosion of trust. What I did not expect was how the world would rearrange to close me out entirely. Months passed, jobs gone, friendships frayed to a thin cord. I followed the new life with Claire into pregnancy classes and ultrasound rooms, while the ghost of my past life walked free and silent just outside the doorway. Then came the small, ordinary thing that changed everything again. A few months after the split, I saw Rachel in a shop. She was even more composed than I remembered. She told me she'd found a keychain, a small, battered token my grandfather had given me when I was a kid. It wasn't worth money, but it was worth 1,000 memories. She said she'd hold onto it and I could pick it up on Saturday morning. I promised I'd be there. My son, Jonah, was born 3 days late. He was perfect. He slept like an angel and looked like an agreement of things that had gone wrong and then somehow become right. I wanted to be there the moment he arrived. I had less than 24 hours between Rachel's Saturday and the hospital's immediate new father chaos. I planned to swing by Rachel's on the way. I thought it would be closure, a small exchange, and then I'd be at the hospital cradling what I'd helped bring into the world. I did not tell Claire about the plan. She still carried the memory of Rachel like a raw plate. I didn't want to be the one to draw blood into that wound before it could scab. When I arrived at Rachel's, she invited me inside. We spoke longer than I expected. The conversation tasted like old habits. Apologies, small jokes that landed awkwardly, a handshake of 2 people trying to close a door without slamming it. She hugged me when I left. I clutched that hug like a man who had come to a long, late understanding. It was less than an hour. I promised myself I would leave and not look back. I left the flat with the weight of those minutes burning in my chest, and drove the 20 minutes to the hospital. When I reached the ward, I was stopped. Claire had revoked my access. I had never been denied like that before. The nurse at the desk said they couldn't let me through. The ward manager was curt, the security guard blunt. The ground under my feet went hollow. I called Claire on repeat. No answer. I texted her mother. No answer. I began to panic in a way that felt less like anger than a raw physical ache. Then I received a message, one that made the world tilt with a sickening force. It was a screen recording from Claire, a doorbell camera clip and Rachel's voice over it. The footage showed me arriving at Rachel's at 9:30, walking in and walking out at the hug. The same one I had clung to in relief was caught partly framed and in a way that could be interpreted as something else. Rachel's caption read, "Did he even shower and change his clothes between fucking her and holding his son? Congratulations on being stuck with him for the next 18 years. Hope it's everything you dreamed of." I stared at the clip until the pixels tore. The footage can be convincing. It felt like living in a world where truth had been edited. The small hug on a front door could be turned into a story of betrayal and immorality, with a subtitle and a cruel voiceover. My messages, my apologies, my begging, none of it mattered. Rachel blocked me immediately after sending it. Claire saw it, and the screen recording was the straw that broke an already fragile thing. I tried to explain. I begged for context. I sent screenshots of my phone, timestamps, anything that suggested I had been honest. There was nothing to exonerate me that people would accept. My own mother asked a single hollow question. Why did I ruin my life for a baby when Rachel was willing to reconcile? Even she could not see how this felt like being strangled by a lie. I had a son I'd met for minutes. Now a doorbell clip turned into a life sentence of silence. The world believed the screen. I believed nothing. I believed I had been set up. When you have behaved badly, people expect you to pay. I paid. I was fired. I lost friends. I did not ask for sympathy. I understood the moral cost. But I could not accept a second punishment, to be written as something worse than I was. I had not been faithful. I had been foolish. But the image they had of me now was something vile and calculated, and that cut like a second betrayal by fate itself. I replayed the footage in my head until it burned like an ember. There were 3 nails in that coffin, the camera's angle, the cropping that cut the hug to ambiguity, and Rachel's voice, cold and precise, overlaying it with a narrative purpose. The clip was not a moment of documentation. It was a performance of accusation. Every friend I tried to reach recoiled when I said Rachel had sent it. People could not imagine she'd do something so vindictive. Rachel had always been measured, even saintly in our memories. That made it worse. If your ex-lover can produce a clip that ruins you, who is left to believe the truth? Claire's mother sent a short message. The baby needs you, but the mother needs trust. I was shut out, and that word stung more than any blow from a stranger. I tried everything within reach. I demanded the raw doorbell footage. I begged the property app company. I asked friends to help find evidence that the clip had been edited or that the timestamp had gaps. Authorities were polite and slow. You can see the difference between being guilty of one thing and being framed for another. One earns you consequences, the other steals your standing. Lawyers told me it would be months before I could remedy anything. Courts move like glaciers. Days became a blur of legal consultations, coffee that didn't taste, and the bitter hum of a phone that refused to ring with good news. Alone in a kitchen that had once borne 2 mugs and 3 shared mornings, I felt the planet shift under me. My son lived in a hospital room I could not enter. Claire blocked my calls and refused to see me. She would not answer a message. Her mother sent terse replies that suggested only the worst. I could hear the rumors bloom in the silence around me like weeds. I am not looking for absolution. I am looking for the simple fairness of context. I wanted to explain. The hug at Rachel's had been that, a hug. We spoke about closure. I had said my sorry. I had held on because the relief of an old wound finally being acknowledged felt like the only oxygen I had that day. I had not kissed her, not then, but the clip made it look different. A 20-second video could undo 8 years of context like a knife through thread. Every message I sent Claire, every voicemail pleading for a chance to explain, was met with silence, or worse, suspicion. People invented narratives to fill the gap. People prefer a tidy condemnation to messy explanations. The version of me that exists now in social circles is a compressed caricature, unfaithful, callous, and now a monstrous father who visited his ex the same morning the baby was born. The truth, as always, is messy. It is 1,000 small actions and one stupid, selfish affair. None of that justifies what Rachel did, but I can't explain that to people who have already clicked play on a recording that tells them the story they want to hear. I tried to fight. I filed a complaint with the hospital about the revocation of access. I contacted my employer to explain. I sought legal counsel about defamation and about accessing the full footage. Each route felt like walking through water. The hospital said they were exercising discretion in a delicate family matter. Claire's family insisted closure required distance. My employer had their own reasons for acting fast in a company where reputation is currency. Even my own phone data looked weak. Innocuous timestamps and messages that could be read to mean what someone else wanted them to mean. There are things you can't buy back. You can't buy back trust. You can't buy back nights missed with your child. You can't buy back the presence of people who used to be your friend. I put everything into trying to prove a simple thing, that the hug wasn't sex, that my arrival time aligned with the window I'd left the flat, that a visiting father, joyous and terrified, deserves the chance to be known by his child. It felt like pleading for my own name. Friends I had kept for decades turned away. One of them said, "You know what you did." Yes, I did. But that did not mean I deserved to be erased completely, to be denied the chance to sit with Jonah and hum lullabies into his tiny ear. That felt like a cruelty that had nothing to do with my past mistakes and everything to do with a deliberate attempt to break me further. I thought about how stories end. Maybe the worst part is not being punished. It's being dead to everyone who mattered before. You walk down a street and watch your life being labeled in whispers. I went to the doorstep where Rachel had lived and pounded on the mailbox with the silly hope that the owner of the clip would feel a sliver of guilt. Pain is ugly when you seek it from the one who tried to make you smaller. No answer. It was a shrine of silence. Some nights, I lay awake imagining what I would say if I had the chance to show Claire the uncut footage, to show her my clumsy face, the way I had entered, and then fled the flat to reach the hospital. That vision kept me awake with a new ache, the urgent knowledge that I might not ever be able to correct the simple record of what I'd done that day. Now my son is 3 weeks old. I held him for minutes, the day he was born, and the memory of those minutes is a light that burns and blinds. There are times I stare at the little hat with the baby's hospital label and feel like a thief staring at a thing he cannot legally possess. The woman who carried my child has my number muted. Her mother filters my messages with a fine mesh of suspicion. I try not to hate. I try to own the hurt I caused Rachel and to understand the righteous anger she had every right to feel. I have apologized to her in the only ways I knew how. That apology was not accepted. I have no way to prove that the clip was a deliberate cut designed to inflame the worst instincts around me. I don't know why Rachel chose to send that specific message to Claire, or why she waited almost a year to do it, but wait, she teed, and she struck when it hurt the most. Maybe she wanted me to suffer. Maybe she wanted to close the book with a flourish I couldn't answer. I can speculate and imagine and stay lost in the labyrinth of ifs, but the result is the same. No access, no presence, rooms emptied of me. Sometimes justice is slow and bureaucratic and never fully satisfying. Courts, investigations, subpoenas, these are paths, but each one takes time. I don't have and money I don't possess. In the meantime, I lose the small, ordinary things that make life more than a record of mistakes. The sound of a child's breath, The smell of his hair, the sound of a parent in the other room telling the child ridiculous stories about monsters who eat homework. If you are listening to this, I am not seeking your sympathy. I am seeking understanding that life can punish you twice. Once for what you did, and again in a way that eclipses the first punishment with finality. I own my sins. I will live with them, but I need to say this. There is a mechanism of harm here that feels different from accountability. It feels like being erased by a recording and then watched as you claw to prove you are still real. I am doing the work. Legal consultations, quieter apologies, getting my affairs in order. If this is a confession, it is an honest one. If it is a plea, it is one to the small kindness embedded inside the people I once called my circle. Before you decide the version of me that a single clip shows, remember there is always context that a 20-second screen recording can never hold. I wish for many things. I wish Rachel had reacted differently. I wish Claire had not been handed the clip. I wish I had never cheated. I wish my son could know me more than the rumors that now define me. This is the wreckage I live in, regret, a child I love from a distance, and the unbearable silence that follows when the people who mattered decide you are a story already told.